Hello, fifth graders, and welcome to another Wednesday vocabulary lesson. My name is Miss Mooney,
I'm Mrs. Wilson,
and today our topic is going to be on evidence.
and our objective is I can name and define the 3 types of evidence.
All right, awesome. So let's get started. Today you won't need any materials. You'll just be watching and listening today.
Unless they want to add it to their ELA
Yeah,
notebook.
that's true. Yeah, that's a great point. You can write any notes that you want as well. That would also be great. I like that idea. So let's go ahead and start with a warm-up activity. So today we're going to be playing a game that Mrs. Wilson and I created that's called Guess My Favorite Subject.
All right, we will give you clues to help guess what our favorite subjects are. And you can even try this at home with your family or friends. Give them some clues to try to guess something about you.
I like it. All right, let's get started. Oh, so it looks like this is Miss Wilson's is up first. So I see that you're reading something. What's that book? Is that like a book that you're reading right now?
Yeah, it's called Esperanza Rising, which we're going to be reading that same book in the next couple of weeks.
Ooh, oh, that's so exciting. Awesome. I also see something with movies on the bottom and writing in a journal, or maybe that's like writing in a notebook. Okay. Oh, I see you put down some of your favorite hobbies too. What are those?
So I like reading to my kids. Like I said, I'm reading Esperanza Rising right now. I love I'm hoping, after this virus is gone, but before then, I love to go to plays and movies with my family. One of my favorite things to do ever since I was little, I love to journal. I love to keep a personal journal. So I love journaling.
Wow, those are all really fun hobbies. I like those too. Well, I'm gonna guess that obviously you like reading. You're reading a couple different books and you like play. So it sounds like you really enjoy literature and writing and things like that. So I'm gonna guess that your favorite subject is it ELA, like what we're doing right now?
You guessed it. I love ELA. And I'm
Oh, that's awesome.
starting to 5th grade ELA.
That's awesome. Cool. I like it. All right. So here's mine.
Right, just like mine. This is Miss Moody. Oh, I see all these fun pictures. Oh, what is that glittery one? Oh, I think it looks like the stars, maybe?
It's like the solar system. Yeah.
And the giant. Oh, she's definitely fighting for climate change. And I see some animals there. It almost makes me
Mhm.
think about the zoologists, but these are all a part of something, right? Oh,
Yeah.
I also see that you have a list of hobbies. What are your hobbies, Miss Mooney?
Yeah. So the hobbies that I put down is that I really love going to the zoo and just seeing all the different animals and learning about them and their habitats. I also really enjoy going to the aquarium. I love to read as well. So that was a book, and you were right that Greta in the book, she's fighting for climate change. It's a really cool nonfiction book. I also really like to do experiments and problem solving and working on new projects. And I also love going outside.
Those are all fun things. I love doing those too, but it seems like they're all under an umbrella. And I'm wondering if you
Mhm.
like
I think the
science. Is
experiments give
science
it
your
away.
subject?
Yeah, it is. Science is my favorite subject. Yep, you got it. Awesome. I liked that game. So you'll have to try that at home with your family or try to get your friends to guess what your favorite things are. So we're going to do a little review from this week so far, what we've learned in my lesson so far. So on Monday, we learned that, or we were able to define cause and effect, and we looked at many different examples to try to figure out what the cause and effect was in that book. So the first one we read about was Alexander's terrible day. And so we got to find cause and effect in that example. And then we also figured out that we know that cause is the why did something happen, and then effect is what happened. So when you put them together, cause and effect is asking you, why did this thing happen, or why did this event happen? And then on Tuesday, we defined the word evidence, and we found evidence in an informational text to help us answer questions. So we actually did an activity that was really similar to the one that you just did with Mrs. Wilson and I, where you had to guess what animals I had at my house. So we just practiced that again, where you got to see all the different evidence, or in this case, it was pictures and examples of our hobbies. And then we also learned the 3 steps that it takes towards finding evidence in a text. And we knew that the first one was that you have to locate the evidence. So where in the text is it? Is it in the first paragraph, second paragraph, things like that? And then you have to identify the text that you were on the hunt for. And then third is that you go ahead and you underline or you highlight that text, and then you can go back and you can check your answer just because you know that your answer is highlighted in that color. So great job with that
Oh,
so
those
far
are
this week. Oh yeah, we did a lot of cool work.
Right now, we're going to introduce our new vocabulary for this week. I'm really excited. Our first one is logical evidence.
Mm-hmm.
Interesting word. Empirical evidence. And anecdotal evidence.
Oh wow. So I see the word evidence is repeated each time. So I'm guessing these are like different types of evidence, I think.
Yeah, to help you find things. This is interesting. I'm excited to learn these new words.
Wow. Yeah, I haven't seen these ones yet. So this will be cool. I'll have to see some examples, I think.
Okay, so our first one is logical evidence. So based on earlier known or well-known information presented in a clear organized pattern. So that's an interesting way to put it. So basically, it's all about facts. So a good hint would be if it's all straight facts. If there's a lot of facts in it, it's a good indicator that it's a logical evidence. And then it's very specific evidence. So it's very key to something. So I will show you an example. So I found these. So based on a study found in the Journal of the Social Psychology, people who performed a single kind act a day for 10 days experience a significant increase in overall happiness than those who didn't. So do you see how they did a study, and this is straight facts. So this is stuff that they found, and it was like, why should we be kind? And this is why. And they did a 10-day experience. So this is definitely a fact. So another study conducted by Harvard University and the University of British Columbia found that remembering past acts of kindness can make you happier and more likely to perform more kind acts. This is something called a positive feedback loop. So these are all.
So that was even kind of like a vocab word in there too, positive feedback loop. So yeah, that all seems like a lot of good facts in there. That's awesome. I can see why we should be kind now. This is really cool. I like that.
Yeah. So our next one is empirical evidence. So empirical evidence means information or facts gained by observation or experiment based on scientific analysis. So these like good tips for these are they're usually persuasive. You can argue either side. Why you should or should not do something, or in the observation. So this is a lot of things where people are they're trying to persuade you to do something.
Wow.
What do you think?
It sounds persuasive, yeah, with the observations and everything.
Yeah. So an example of empirical evidence, Lisa Curie wrote this thing like why teaching kindness at school is essential to reduce bullying. And she came up with a lot, and the 4 that stuck out to me were happy, caring children, greater sense of belonging and improved self-esteem, it improved health and less stress, and increased feelings of gratitude. What do you think she's trying to persuade us to do, Miss Mooney?
Well, I think she's trying to persuade teachers like us to teach our students why they should be kind. I see the word essential in there. And so essential means that it's really important, that it has to be done. And that sounds pretty persuasive. And it sounds like from those 4 great examples that you gave that maybe those are some observations that she's seen. Maybe she's a teacher and she's observed that with students.
Yeah. And then you almost could find another article where people may not think it's essential. So
Mm-hmm.
this is definitely that she's persuading us and that she's giving us why she thinks that.
Oh, so I saw that bullet on the last slide said why you shouldn't or why you should. And this seems like it's kind of like why you should be kind in school. So that's cool. So I'd
That's
be
right.
curious about the other why you shouldn't be kind. That would be kind of funny to read, but I guess that could happen. Yeah, when you're trying to persuade people.
Yep. So this is anecdotal evidence. So the definition of anecdotal evidence, ooh, that's a fancy word,
Mm-hmm.
is information or gained from casual observation. So usually presented in a narrative style. So good indicator that it's an anecdotal evidence is a strong opinion based on your own experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I might have a different experience from Miss Mooney on something. She may think differently on something, but I have a strong opinion based on something that I've done, or the person that is writing it might have a different or strong opinion.
Wow. And, I've heard that we see anecdotal evidence all the time, too. I'm even thinking about when I talk to my parents that usually it's based on my opinion. Maybe it's about like a food that I like or a TV show that I liked, and I'm telling them maybe why they should watch it. And it's based on my experience, why I enjoyed it. I see it on online a lot of times, too. So it's pretty cool that we know what that is now.
Yeah. Like I don't like onions, but
Oh,
based on my own
I love
experience,
onions.
but people might love onions. Yeah.
Mhm.
So an example of anecdotal evidence is, so I wrote this. So this is something that I experienced. I have a strong opinion about.
Oh,
So
great.
being is the best job ever.
Mm.
Last year, I taught preschool. We made sandcastles, we painted, we read, we sang songs, and we played in many different centers.
Mm.
Being able to experience those things with my students and to watch them grow and learn made my job as a teacher the best job.
Wow, that
And
does sound
so,
like the best job.
yeah, and it's just based off of my own experience. Now, everybody that being a preschool teacher might not feel like it's the best job ever. But in my experience, and this is my strong opinion, that being a teacher is the best job ever.
Wow. Well, I would have to agree with that because I also think it's the best job ever. But I really liked all the reasons that you gave. Making sandcastles and painting and reading, that's not something that everyone gets to do in their job. So I liked your opinion that you think it was the best because you got to do all those fun, creative things. That sounds awesome.
Yes.
I like that. All right, so just like how we did last week, we're going to learn a couple fun movements just to get us moving around out of our seats and to help us remember our new vocabulary words. So, Mrs. Wilson, will you help me teach the fifth graders this because it's going to be a little bit tricky this time?
Yes, ma'am. You got my help.
So today we're actually going to be learning some sign language. So you might have known or learned sign language in the past. I think it's a lot of fun way to learn, a different way to communicate with people. So let's learn a couple words in sign language. So our first word is logical. So logical evidence, like Mrs. Wilson said, is that I'm getting my evidence from facts. So we're going to learn the sign for facts, okay? So what you're going to do is you're going to get your pointer finger, put your
Okay.
pointer finger to your chin,
Mhm.
put out your hand like you're holding something. And then what you're going to do
Okay.
is you're going to point your pointer finger to your hand, just like this. Yeah, awesome job. And you just do it right in front of you. Great job. So that's kind
Almost
of
like
like,
you're saying facts.
I thought so too. Yeah, it looks like I'm saying facts to you. Yeah, that's a great way to remember it. Our next word is going to be empirical. And so when we're using empirical evidence, I am using evidence to persuade you into something. So the sign for persuade is that you're going to take your hands like this, like maybe you're holding a volleyball, and you're going to move them twice, just like that. Yeah, great job.
Wait.
That kind of reminds me of like, I'm trying to tell you something, like I'm trying to persuade you of something, convince you of something. This sign can also mean
I
to
like
convince.
that.
Yeah, so that was a good one. I liked that one. And then our last one is anecdotal. So when I'm using anecdotal evidence, I'm using evidence that comes from my opinion. So just like Mrs. Wilson said, it was her opinion that she thinks that teaching is the best job ever. So the sign for opinion is that you're going to take your pinky,
Okay.
just like this, and you're going to put your fingers flat. Great job. And then put your pinky to your forehead and brush up. And this is how you say opinion. And I like to remember that kind of like when I'm thinking of something, my thoughts are like coming out of my head is how I like to remember it. So that is opinion. So let's go over theirs one more time. So for logical, I'm getting my evidence from facts. We're point your finger up to our chin, our hand, and we're putting it on there. Perfect. That is facts. And then empirical is when I'm using evidence to persuade you. So our sign for persuade was that you hold your soccer ball and then you move it twice. This is persuade. Great job. And then anecdotal, I'm getting evidence from my opinion. So you're gonna get your pinky finger up, your other fingers down, and you put it right to your forehead. Yep, just like that. And you just kind of brush it upwards.
Opinion.
Great job. I like it. So we'll go over theirs a little bit more at the end of the lesson, but those are just a couple movements to help you remember.
I like that.
Yeah, I thought those were kind of fun. It's fun learning a different language. I thought that was cool. So
Yes.
evidence can actually work together in articles as well. So Mrs. Wilson showed you some great examples of how evidence looked all by itself, each different kind of evidence, but it's really cool because one text can have all of the different kinds of evidence in it. So sometimes a text will use various types of evidence. So maybe they want to use their opinion, but also persuade you, but also give you facts with their evidence, that they just kind of want to mix it up and give you different variety of evidence. And then also a single text could even have all three types of evidence. So it doesn't have to have all three, of course, it could just have one or two or all three of them. So let's go ahead and take a look at a text that has various types of evidence in it. So the text that we are going to be working on is going to be on national parks reopening. So we know that we have been in quarantine for a little bit with the coronavirus and school got closed a little bit early, but this article is going to be about national parks reopening for people to enjoy. So let's go ahead and take a look at the text. Oh, and that picture on the side was a picture of Yellowstone. So we're going to be reading about Yellowstone a little bit. All right, Miss Wilson, so let's see. So I'll go ahead and read the first half, and then do you want to read the second half to the fifth graders? Okay, let's do it. So first, let's just do one read through so that we can understand what the text is talking about. And fifth graders at home, if you want, you can start thinking of what kind of evidence that you think you see in this. But for now, it's totally fine just to be listening and reading along as well. So let's get started. So the title of this article is Parks Reopen, and this came from Times for Kids. So it says, all around the country, states are loosening coronavirus restrictions, which that basically means that the restrictions are starting to get a little bit less strict. Businesses, restaurants, and other public spaces are slowly reopening. On Memorial Day weekend, people crowded onto beaches for the first time in months. But many weren't following social distancing guidelines. So you might have heard about social distancing, but that's basically where you just keep at least 6 feet apart from other people so that you aren't spreading germs as easily. So this is saying that not many people were following those guidelines, unfortunately. This can become a problem at national parks, which are also starting to reopen. The Grand Canyon in Arizona began admitting visitors again in mid-May. At the time, at least one tourist felt safe. Matthias Zutter, a visitor from Switzerland, told the Associated Press, "You could see that people took precautions and were keeping their distance. But that could change as the summer heats up, and it presents a challenge for park officials." Cam Scholey is the superintendent of Yellowstone National Park, and that was the picture that we saw on the slide. Most of it is in Wyoming. The park gets 4 million visitors a year. Scholey says it's hard enough for staff to keep people away from wildlife, such as bears and bison. The notion that we're going to keep every human being 6 feet apart is ridiculous, he says. He also adds a massive amount of signage. Well, so that's kind of like signs telling you directions and instructions will have to be posted around the park. It encourages visitors to keep a safe distance apart and to clean their hands.
Wonderful. So some parks will close off section to prevent crowding. Grand Canyon visitors centers, hotels, and restaurants remain shut down, but its cliff hugging trails will be open. Spokesperson Lily Daniels says hikers will be expected to practice self-governance, which means people will need to take responsibility to be safe. That's a bad idea, said Rob Arberger, a former superintendent at the park. It simply defies logic, he says. In his opinion, people are likely to cluster at popular spots. Other parks, such as Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado, may use time entry to manage crowds. Visitors will have to buy tickets in advance. For now, parks are working with health officials to make sure visitors are safe. Shawley says it's a time of uncertainty. No one's an expert at reopening national parks in the pandemic. Thank you, Miss.
I almost cut off the last part. Wow, there was a lot of great information in there about parks reopening. So I think what we should do is maybe go through and do another close read of it. So we know that when we do a close read, we are looking for something specific, and we're really going line by line to try to learn more. So let's see, let's start with finding our logical evidence. So let's see, do you remember what logical was? We had this sign for it. Remember what that meant? Right, yeah, so that means facts. So let's go through and read where we can find some specific facts. So let's do the introduction again. All around the country, states are loosening coronavirus restrictions. Businesses, restaurants, and other public spaces are slowly reopening. On Memorial Day weekend, people crowded onto beaches for the first time in months, but many weren't following social distancing guidelines. Okay, well, I didn't really see any obvious facts in there. Up here might be a fact that all around the country, states are loosening coronavirus restrictions. That could possibly be one. So let's go ahead and highlight that. So let's see, we will use blue for logical. This could be a problem at national parks, which are also starting to reopen. The Grand Canyon, Arizona began admitting visitors again in mid-May. So that looks like it could be a fact, because it's kind of like a timeline of when they started reopening. Like, we could look up when the Grand Canyon let visitors come again. So I think that could be a fact.
Well, in Michigan, the Grand Canyon is a fact because it is in Arizona.
Oh, that's a great point. I like that too. Yeah, I think that's a great point. So let's go ahead and highlight that as well. I like it. At the time, at least one tourist felt safe. Matthias Zutter, a visitor from Switzerland, told the Associated Press, "You could see that people took precautions and were keeping their distance." So I don't really know if that's a fact because it's something that someone observed. So I think that might be something else. We can come back to that. But that could change as the summer heats up, and it presents a challenge for national park officials. Cam Scholey is the superintendent of Yellowstone National Park. That looks like it could be a fact. We could probably look up who the superintendent of the national park is. Most of it is in Wyoming. I like that too. That sounds like how we saw that the Grand Canyon was in Arizona. That's a great one. The park gets 4 million visitors a year. That sounds like a fact to me. That's something that we could also look up. So it's a really good indication that something is a fact if you're able to go online or go wherever you get your news and you can look it up. And so I think those are all facts that we could look up. Scholey says it's hard enough to keep staff to keep people away from wildlife such as bears and bison. The notion that we're going to keep every human being 6 feet apart is ridiculous, he says. He adds that a massive amount of signage has to be posted around the park, and that the park is encouraging people to keep a safe distance. Let's see, so then it says, some parks will close off sections to prevent overcrowding. The Grand Canyon Visitor Center's hotels and restaurants remain shut down. That looks like it could be a fact as well. We could look up when they're planning on reopening, and it probably will show that they're shut down still. So we
Yep.
can go ahead and highlight that as well. But its cliff-hugging trails will be open. Spokesperson Lily Daniels says hikers will be expected to practice self-governance, which means to take responsibility to be safe. That's a bad idea, Ron Arbenberg said, a former superintendent of the park. So that looks like it's also a fact that he was a former superintendent. That's something that we could look up. So I think that also gives him some credibility too. It shows that he knows the park, he used to be the superintendent. It simply defies logic, he said. In his opinion, that reminds me of another word. We'll have to go back to that.
Yeah.
People are likely to cluster at popular spots. Other parks, such as the Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado, might use timed entry to manage crowds. Visitors will have to buy tickets in advance. For now, parks are working with health officials to make sure the visitors are safe. Jolie says, in a time of uncertainty, no one is an expert at reopening national parks in the pandemic. Wow, so that was great. We found a lot of good facts in there. All of the facts look like they're at the beginning of the paragraphs too. That's kind of interesting. It might just be the way that this person writes. So let's go back through into those facts that we read, and we can make sure that they were all facts. So let's see, Mrs. Wilson, will you give me a yes or no if you think that that's something that we could prove? So all around the country, states are loosening coronavirus restrictions.
I do think we could prove that.
The Grand Canyon is in Arizona. We can look that up. It began admitting visitors again in mid-May.
We could look that up.
Look that up. Cam Scholey is the superintendent of Yellowstone National Park. That's a good one.
Yep.
Most of the national park is in Wyoming. That's a good one.
Yes.
The park gets 4 million visitors a year. I think that was the most obvious fact in this.
Yes.
And then we grabbed that the Grand Canyon Visitor Centers, hotels, and restaurants will remain shut. I think we could look that up.
Yep.
And then our last one was that Rob Arnberger was a former superintendent at Yellowstone Park.
Oh, and Miss Mooney in the last paragraph said Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado.
Oh, that's a great catch. Yeah. I think so too. It's really helpful knowing the locations of places too, I think, so that it gives us a little bit of context on where it is. Wow, great job.
All right. Now we're going to go through the text again and look up all of our empirical ones. So what was our word that Miss Mooney for empirical to help us remember?
So we did this sign twice, and that meant
and what was that?
Persuade. Or I mean to convince.
Persuade.
Yeah.
Convince. Okay.
So you should do something, you shouldn't do something.
Okay. All right, so we already know that the first part is logical. So I'm going to continue sentences. So businesses, restaurants, and other public places are slowly reopening. What do you think about that one?
I wasn't really sure if it was a fact, but I don't know if it's trying to convince us of doing something.
Yeah, so I don't think that's it. Memorial Day weekend, people crowded onto beaches for the first time in months. But many were, so I'm not sure about that one because they're just stating something. They're not really telling anything. But this next one says, but many weren't following social distancing guidelines. So I could see why some people may think they weren't, or were if they were. So I think this could be definitely an empirical.
I think it sounds like an observation too. I don't know if we could really look that up because I don't know if we'd find much data on it, but someone who was at the beach might have noticed it. So I think it could be an observation.
Yes, definitely. Okay, this could become a problem at national parks, which are also starting to. So I think that is an empirical statement too, because some people might think it's a problem, some people might think, but whoever's there thinks it's a problem.
I agree.
At this time, at least one tourist felt safe. Matthew, or how do you say that again, Miss Mooney?
Matthias. I know, that was kind of difficult.
Matthias Zetter, a visitor from Switzerland, told us Associated Press. You can see that people look precautious and were keeping their distance. But that could change if the summer heats up, and it presents a challenge for park officials. So that was kind of like his observation. That sounds like more of an opinion to me. What do you think, Miss Mooney?
I thought it sounded like an opinion too, because I don't know if he was really trying to convince us of something or persuade us. So I think
Yeah,
it has to be an opinion.
just giving his observation. Okay.
I think so.
So we already know. So Shawley says it's hard enough for the staff to keep people away from wildlife, such as bears and bisons. What do you think about that one?
That sounds like she's trying to tell us that things are already kind of difficult. So it's definitely an observation. You know, I think it might be an observation that's trying to persuade us to think that the parks are reopening too fast, maybe.
Yep, I agree.
I like that one.
The notion that we're getting to keep every human people or being 6 feet apart is ridiculous, he says. So that sounds like a strong opinion. What do you think?
I thought the same thing.
He adds that a massive amount of signage has been posted around the park. It encourages visitors to keep a safe distance apart and clean their hands.
That word encourages sticks out to me. Because that kind of sounds like that they want us to do something.
They want us to do, yeah, that's what I was thinking. We almost could decide.
I think so, yeah.
Close off all sections to prevent crowding. That sounds like a fact to me almost. But it's cliff-hugging trails will, spokesperson Lily Daniels says, hikers will be expected to practice self-governance, which means people will need to take responsibility to be safe. Okay, and it looks like the rest is really just literal. I don't know if I'm seeing any more empirical evidence there, but I think we got enough to get an idea of it. Miss Mooney, what do you think?
I thought so too.
All right. Now, lastly, our anecdotal. Miss Moody, let's read this again and see if we can find, what was our sign for that one again? It was...
Yeah, you got it. So it's the pinky out and then it's pushing up. So it's opinion. So we're looking for people's strong opinions.
Ooh, so this is a strong opinion.
Yeah, so it's what people think.
Yeah. I don't see anything in the paragraph.
Oh, I see some text, or I see some quotation marks. That means that they're quoting something that someone says. So I think we should read that. So the visitor from Switzerland said, you could see that people took precautions and were keeping their distance. So although that sounds kind of like an observation, it also sounds like his opinion, because maybe someone else that observed that thought, ooh, I don't think they're taking precautions. So I think that sounds like his opinion.
Yeah.
So let's highlight that one pink.
Ooh, I like that.
That could change as the summer heats up, and it presents a challenge for park officials.
Ooh, I see quotation marks again.
See quotation marks. Yeah, quotation marks don't always mean that it's someone's opinion, because someone could be quoting or saying a fact. But in this one, it sounds like a lot of opinion. So that notion that we are going to keep every human being 6 feet apart is ridiculous. That word ridiculous really gave it away for me.
Yeah, that is definitely an opinion.
I think so too. Someone else might think that it's possible.
Yeah, it's definitely a strong opinion when you use the word ridiculous, because that is a strong word for sure.
I agree. I thought so too. And then he says that there's going to be a massive amount of signage that will be posted around the park. Some parks will close off sections due to overcrowding, but it's cliff-hugging trails that will stay open. Spokesperson Lily Daniels says that hikers will be expected to practice self-governance, which means people will have to take responsibility to be safe. So that could be an opinion, but if that's kind of like a new rule or the new norm of the park that people need to do self-governance, then I don't know if that's her opinion then.
I think that just might be a rule.
It might be a rule, I was thinking.
That's but look at the
idea. One. That sounds like an opinion to me. Someone might think it's a great idea, but he thinks it's a bad idea. Oh, look at this. In his opinion. It even says it right there. So it says, in
Oh,
his
that was
opinion,
nice. Thank
people will
you for
question.
wait for us.
Yeah, that was.
Usually if something says opinion, that is definitely an anecdotal.
I think so too. That's a great catch. Other parks, such as the Rocky Mountain National Park in Colorado, may use timed entry to manage crowds. Visitors will have to buy a ticket in advance, and that sounds like they might just be rules. Right now, parks are working with health officials to make sure visitors are safe. Sholey says it's a time of uncertainty. No one's an expert at reopening national parks in a pandemic. I think that sounds like an opinion as well, because someone might think they are an expert at it, but Sholey does not think
Yep.
so. Wow, that was awesome. Look at all the evidence we found just in this one text, and it was different evidence. This kind of looks
Can
like
you
a
see
rainbow.
how, yeah, can you see how like this one text had all three of them in it? Now this text could only had two. I mean, it could have been varied. Do you see that too, Miss Mooney? How like
You know, I was
we
thinking maybe if they didn't quote people of what they said, maybe we wouldn't have many opinions. So if you remember, opinions were the pink color, and a lot of it came from what people said. So maybe if this article didn't take interviews or didn't take what people thought, maybe it wouldn't have any anecdotal data or evidence. So that could be
yes.
a situation.
Very
But
nice. I like that exercise. Hopefully this was helpful
I
for
think we
you
did a
guys
good
as well.
job. If this was a little tricky for you at home, you can go back and pause while we read, and you can watch this part again if you need a little extra time on it.
Most definitely.
All right, let's go back to our slides and check out what's next. Oh, let's make a match.
Woo! We did this last week. We made a matches last week. We played this last week. So our three words we're going to use today are logical, empirical, and anecdotal. So you're simply going to make a match with the definitions. So here's our three definitions: evidence from facts or specific evidence. So which one was our fact? Was it this one?
So your palm was out like you're holding something.
Oh, wrong
Yeah,
way.
you got it. Yeah, sometimes it takes some practice. Yep, so that was fact.
Okay. Then the next definition is strong opinion-based evidence or evidence from personal experience. So this one, we did this one, right? Or was it this one? Oh yeah, opinion.
Yeah, you got it. Yeah, just like that. That was opinion.
Oh, Miss Valerie had to move her hand. It does take practice.
It takes practice. Yeah, I've been practicing all day, so don't worry.
Yeah, and you can always pause and practice the movements, whatever helps you. And also, I encourage you, even if you didn't get your paper, you can always come back and write these down in your ELA notebook. It's up to you. You could either watch or write it down, but it'd be helpful. So our evidence, our last one is evidence used to persuade someone into doing something or not doing something. And so this one was that one, right?
Yeah, perfect. So you did this twice.
Persuade. Okay.
Yeah, great job. So if you want to go ahead and pause your screen for about 5 to 10 minutes now, then you can go ahead and try to make some matches. And then we'll help you out with the answers after.
Wonderful.
All right. So ready to make a match, Mrs. Wilson?
Yes.
All right. So let's start with logical.
All right.
So logical, we remember that this was our movement, which means fact. So if you guessed that logical was evidence from facts or specific evidence, you got that right. All right. And then empirical. Do you remember what our move was for empirical?
Was it this one?
Yep. So empirical is when you are trying to persuade someone or convince someone or tell someone what they should or shouldn't do. So if you guessed the last one, you got it right. All right. Now let's take a look at anecdotal. So do you remember the movement for anecdotal? It's a little obvious what the answer is, but let's practice one more time. Yep. So as your pinky and your fingers down and your arm going up on your forehead. Just like that.
Awesome.
Great job.
So yeah, anecdotal is a strong opinion based. So
awesome. So great job with that, all the movements.
All right. So Miss Mooney and I kind of switched it up on you. You'll have her at the beginning of the week. We'll meet together in the middle, and then I'll be at the end of the week. So I'm going to give you a look into the rest of the week. So tomorrow, Thursday, or whenever your Thursday is, we'll be working with more articles. So we've been working on them for the past week or two. in the UDHR to find text evidence to summarize the text. So we're going to be using a lot of these skills that we're learning to help summarize it. And then on Friday, we're going to be proving a point by citing an example out of the articles of the UDHR. So we should be finishing up this week, and then we'll be excited to start Unit 2 next week. So
Great.
I
And
don't
the
know, this will be
UDHR,
exciting.
that was the Universal Declaration of Human Rights? Is that what that's?
That's right.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
That's what I
We
thought.
worked with Article 1. This week we're going to be working up till 5. So we'll definitely be working more in there. I'm excited to work the rest of the week with you, and have a nice day.
That sounds awesome. Well, thanks for joining us for a vocabulary lesson. We'll see you next time.
See you next week.